Matthew 21, verse 12 says, "Then Jesus went into the temple of God and drove out all those who bought and sold in the temple and overturned the tables of the money changers and the seats of those who sold doves." Here we see a striking image of Jesus acting with righteous indignation. As he enters the temple, he is confronted with a scene that reveals corruption and worship in God's house. The temple, which was intended as a place of prayer and reverence, had been turned into a marketplace. This passage reminds us that he deeply values the sanctity of worship and the purity of devotion to God. The money changers and merchants exploited worshipers by profiting from their religious obligations. People coming to offer sacrifices were required to exchange foreign currency for temple coins, often at unfair rates. Additionally, those selling doves charged enormous prices for the animals needed for sacrifices and taking advantage of the poor and the marginalized. This commercialism was not just a distraction, it was an insult to the holiness of the temple and a barrier between people and God. His actions in driving out the merchants and overturning their tables demonstrates his authority as the Son of God and his zeal for true worship. This passage challenges us to consider whether we have allowed anything to corrupt or distract us from pure devotion to God. Are there areas in our lives where worldly priorities or selfish motives have taken place of heartfelt worship? This event also highlights his commitment to justice and compassion. By removing the merchants, he was advocating for those who were being oppressed and exploited. This is a call for us to ensure that our faith practices and communities reflect God's love, justice, and inclusivity rather than our self-interest or exclusion. Finally, this passage points to Jesus as the fulfillment of prophecy and the one who cleanses not only the temple, but also our hearts. As we reflect on this verse, may we invite Christ to examine the purity of our hearts and removing anything that dishonors him. Let us seek to worship him in spirit and truth, honoring him with lives that reflect his holiness and love.